Thank you. For all the Ellies and their dads, hasta siempre. Before I started this piece, I thought to myself, what word of wisdom can I infuse upon myself at this point? And I come up with this notion of, people always say to me, be a man. Well, be a man, be a woman, be a child. Be sensitive. Be a human being. And that's all I ask of anybody listening to this plea today. The last words my son said to me in 2024 were, "What are we going to do now, Dad?" Then the telephone was taken from his hands and hung up abruptly. There was no chance for him to finish his thoughts, to say, "Happy New Year's, Dad," or to politely say, "Good night, Dad, I love you." Just someone grabbing the phone from this 33-year young man's hands with no regard for his feelings or that of his actual real father on the other end. My Elliot has effectively been abducted, kidnapped, and removed from my life, just as, more importantly, I have been exiled without consent from his. So our life we share is under great risk. My son was born on Canada Day, 1991. His birthday has become, over time for us, less a celebration of his life than a painful reminder of what nothing is readily accessible and available to us in this country today. Originally, when the idea for this advocacy plea came to us, I didn't want to even use the words I, me, or mine, because I did not want the effort to be misconstrued as a personal whine, rather than a first-hand qualitative accounting of three significant phenomena: autism, divorce, and PTSD, which are impacting Canadian society today in very deleterious and often not so subtle ways. When these three separate but not necessarily mutually exclusive elements collide, the damaging fallout is not confined to single-parent dads and their children. Relationships with immediate and extended families, friends, acquaintances, and co-workers at home, work, and play are threatened. Neighbors, colleagues, everyone you know can be affected. Workplace performance can be impacted. The quantity and quality of someone's entire social support network can be undermined, and the world and life they knew placed under tremendous jeopardy. The dynamic interplay of autism, divorce, and ongoing, continuous traumatic stress in our case, more often than not results in devastating effects, biopsychosocial, economic, etc., being placed upon the literally millions of Canadian girls and boys, the Ellies and their dads, who are marginalized by this self-perpetuating feedback loop system. These shocking experiences are typically traumatic for newly formed single-parent dads and their children of divorce, because they are unexpected, undesired, immediately and dramatically life-altering, and in too many cases, life-ending. For the former, socialization usually follows, and that can feel like solitary confinement, the absolute worst form of human or animal psychological and emotional torture and punishment, especially for families coping with a condition like autism, which is partially defined by an assumed lack of social reciprocity to begin with. Many informed individuals and groups argue that this aspect of the human experience in Canadian society today is the most alarming area of social injustice and human rights violations in the country, because it affects the largest number of Canadians, and it specifically targets dads and their children of divorce living in single-parent homes. This advocacy declaration is a simple plea for understanding about the circumstances that separate my autistic son and I from our most significant source of support and love, that is to say, each other. My Elliot and I typically spend 3 to 6 hours each day talking with one another on the phone from 2,000 miles away. He is in Toronto. I'm in Newfoundland. There's no bridge to Canada from here. It takes a family a lot of time and money and patience to travel back and forth to Canada from the Great Island and the Big Land. We people who live in Labrador and Newfoundland live in distinct societies, as unique as any others in this country. How are we to advocate for anything, including our families' rights and and be treated decently, fairly, and equitably. I ran one marathon in my life. It took me almost 5 hours to do it. People do it in less than half that time, but it was a very unplanned, exhilarating, and empowering experience for me. I only mention it because I remember passing my running time of 4 hours, 59 minutes, and 6 seconds on the telephone with Elliot for the very first time. We did eclipse the 9-hour mark once and routinely have daily conversations between 5 to 7 hours. That is what our natural, sacred, biological relationship has been reduced to. Between 1,500 to 2,000 hours on the telephone each year for the past 10 years. Our phone records indicate 15,000 to 20,000 hours since 2014 on the telephone. That's as much as most .ca nurses, teachers, or social workers worked in the last decade. But my son and I didn't get paid for with all the bells and whistles, holidays, and benefits. We were barely surviving the educational, health, and social community service systems in this country who were not caring for, to use their language, my person with a disability. My PWD son, with his conditions and needs. These phone calls are all that we have to connect us, to keep our vital child-parent bond strong, to preserve our basic human dignity, our very humanity itself. For all the triple T's, the sterile thumb-twiddling twats who would refer to us to Zoom or familial parent nurturing versus via AI, let's just state here and now that most families living with autism have healthy IQs, and more importantly, even healthier EQs. We prefer to raise our children in supportive, loving environments, not to treat them artificially or virtually without the crucial life-giving benefits of actual physical contact, attachment, and nurturing by tangible touching and hands-on assurance and reassurance. A lot of people say they couldn't do what I do for my son. That's not true. They just wouldn't do what is required to assist marginalized individuals of any sort to attain their optimal level of functioning across all domains of human experience. There are times every day when I am singing to, dancing with, teaching, and simply playing with my son on the phone, when both of us just want to crawl through the lines and touch each other, to see and feel each other in person, and to share our big Papa Bear hugs. We want to be together, to actually thrive in living, just like ants, elephants, orcas, and every other living thing that flies, swims, or crawls upon this planet Earth strives to do in order to connect physically with its kind or family or herd, school, or flock. To separate all the Ellies and their dads is unnatural, unethical, immoral, and not conducive to the healthy human growth and development of children or the parents, regardless of if you have autism or not. Hands-off policies that we see in schools today are socio-educationally counterintuitive and are counterproductive, but they may improve the quality of working life for the employee, which is of primary focus and importance, while what is not being done to best serve the needs of students is of secondary importance and consideration. Depending on an individual's degree of autonomy and independence, the 1 in 50.ca kids who are truly autistic comprise part of the vulnerable sector of Canadian society. And they deserve our assistance and support to share and enjoy a decent and desired quality of life. So what are we going to do now, Dad? Did I do anything wrong to keep us apart? What can we do to bring us back together? These are questions Elliot asks me all the time, and we ask each other every day and night for 10 years now. And we cannot understand or accept why we are apart when we so desperately want and need each other's companionship, love, and support. Neither of us ever wanted to be separated, so why are we? Who is doing this? And why are they keeping us from ever seeing one another? Do we have any rights in Canada as a father and a son? Who can assist? Where do we go for help? Every day I try to explain to my son what I understand but cannot accept. A therapist at the local Status of Women Council recently said emphatically to me and with sincere empathy that you are an intellectual, sir, and you are attempting to use logic and common sense and reason to rationalize the unreasonable, systematic estrangement of you from your child. The systemic alienation of my son and I, in order to break our vital, life-defining parent-child bond, is essentially destructive and not just or fair in any way. So it is difficult to make any sense of it for Ellie and I. It is increasingly hard to endure. It hurts and has taken our smiles away. Obviously, as 2.5 to 3 years of real time shared within the solitary confinement of intimately personal telephone calls attest to, we love and need one another to exist, let alone to thrive and thoroughly enjoy life with our friends and loved ones, as we did for 23 years previously. What am I as a father to do to answer my son's questions and to give he and I hope, if nothing else? Well, what have we two tried to do to reunite us? Because there is very little my son can do, as much as he would like to. He is to use family services related nomenclature, being shouldered, warehoused, objectified. He is being used as a meal ticket to pay the rent. One disenfranchised father, with knowledge of our situation, told me, "You have been displaced to be effectively replaced by the boyfriend, who is not stepping up, but rather stepping on and over you and your son. Someone is always whispering in your son's ear with negative, slanderous talk about you all the time, demonizing you in front of your son, putting you down, pushing you eventually totally out of the picture. They label us bad men, deadbeat dads, Disneyland dads. The vast majority of .ca fathers of divorce are good men and wonderful dads. Yet we are unjustly branded and labeled. It's still okay to mock and ridicule men, and Newfoundlanders too actually, on .ca TV/media, to character assassinate and diminish men like us in our parenting roles. Family members of origin or choice, acquaintances, friends, communities, all these and others tell you to just suck it up, move on, create a life for yourself, forget about the kids. This is going to kill you if you don't let go. Move forward. Most of us disenfranchised dads and our kids are threatened early on by the popularized belief that no court in this land is ever going to take a child from its mother, regardless of the circumstances, no matter how good or bad either biological parent may be. The hundreds of men and women I've interviewed and the thousands of families I've talked with about divorce, autism, and the resultant trauma and stress concur, but they do not defer or acquiesce to the pressures associated with this social, cultural, familial genocide. How can you tell wonderful, honorable .ca dads to think about themselves and forget about their children they co-created and nurtured? You're never even going to see them again. We fathers do everything we legally can, trying to stay relevant in our kids' lives for our children's benefits and well-being. We endure limitless personal pain and suffering. Our kids do too. And that is what devastates us more than anything anyone can do to harm us personally. Almost all these guys, so slandered and ostracized, only care about one thing: what is in the best interest of their children. The house and the money and the stuff is only stuff to them. It is replaceable, but our children are not. They are life itself for us, and we are life itself to most of our wonderful children. Without them, there is no life for us men, and we spend our lives preparing them as best we can for life without us someday. We wish their memories of us to all be fond and full of happiness and joy. Dads like me do not wish to separate children from their moms. Women who intentionally, with purpose, prevent children from spending equal time with loving, caring dads, like the vast majority of fathers I meet are, these women who with no good reason acquire, possess, restrict, and isolate children from sharing their familial lives with their real dads, too, these women who treat boys and girls and their fathers with such disdain, spitefulness, bitterness, and hostility are not really mothers at all. They are not fit to be called mothers. Neither are men who act similarly fit to be called fathers at all either. Totally self-absorbed matriarchs who do not nurture or role model mutual respect for natural co-parents. They impose their will on others, their own children and their children's dads, like despotic tyrants whose personal satisfaction and self-gratification trumps what is in the best interests of their children, whom they make vulnerable and victimized by denying them access to, arguably, their greatest sources of support of all kinds, their dads. The moms and dads who may separate, divorce, or not, but who strive to make one another relevant, available, and meaningful in their children's lives, they are real parents who are doing what is best for their families. That's what I do, and what most of the dads I know try to do. However, it is not how the majority of our children's.ca divorced mothers behave. And if you're not acting in the best interest of your children, who are you looking out for? First and foremost, that's sadistic, self-serving, and megalomaniacal narcissism is fueled by small p professional turfism, that is to say, green disease, the feminine mystique, the social work paradigm, and the toxic femininity that defines Canadian family court lawlessness and injustice today. To repeat, people tell me this is the greatest area of social injustice and human rights violations in Canada today because it affects the greatest number of Canadians overall. Behind every hurting dad is a hurtful mom, too. There are millions of dollars worth of property and resources in the small community I'm in now that provide the support services which we hope that women and children require to resolve issues related to family dynamics and interpersonal relationships. But that is not the case for dads and their... Many of the people I know who have regularly donated and contributed to these so-called family support efforts will not anymore because they see such services not being provided equally for dads and their kids. They do not want to feed double standards of care. They endorse a just and egalitarian society that promotes fairness, not a caste system of layered privilege that anoints one person, one parent, one gender as being better and more deserving than another. I am still living a career working in the area of domestic violence and abuse, and I learned a long time ago that just as many men and their girls and boys are beaten up and beaten down at home as women and their children are. And because of my related work and life experience with women, children, and men with diverse ethno-cultural backgrounds, I am compelled to add the caveat that the vast majority of women in Canada have it better than women in most parts of the world have ever had it. And how much are the fortunate former doing to help our vulnerable sisters elsewhere around the world? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors activity going on in this country. Squeaky wheels making noise. Visible minorities getting face time. .ca dads of divorcing their sons and daughters comprise a huge, invisible minority of Canadian society that is relegated to the back of the bus because of their dad's gender only. What do you call that? Is it democratic? Ours is the case of a young man living with autism and sharing a comorbidity with cerebral palsy and associated physical and mental health issues. He is tall with an unsteady gait, resulting from one leg being substantially shorter than the other. Mobility and endurance are related concerns, as are respiratory and digestive matters. My son was on life support at one point in his life for 4 days at Laval University in Quebec City. I'm eternally grateful to all the people there and the pilots that flew him in and out of Labrador City that night. You saved my son's life. I've always meant to go there and thank those people in person. That day will come. My son's EQ is much higher than his IQ, and his interests and awareness often appear to align more with those of a 6-year-old child than a 33-year-old adult. This young man is my son, and I am his father, biologically and legally. But apparently the laws of nature, the gods, and the Canadian family justice system do not apply to us. So there is no protection for the sanctity of our father-child relationship in .ca Canada today. This plea, this statement of advocacy, is us reaching out, because there is no community outreach to advocate for and give notice to and give voice to us dads and our kids, younger and older, who are part of a vast and growing invisible population of too often extremely marginalized families in Canada today. Such purposeful neglect is one of the most damaging forms of domestic abuse, and it is aimed directly towards .ca children and their fathers like me. My Elliot was first diagnosed with autism at 2 years of age during my second year of graduate study in clinical psychology at the University of Tasmania in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. His diagnosis that day changed the course of my life forever and for the better, including the heartache, the challenges, and the hardships that resulted. I considered the latter gifts, opportunities to impact in positive, meaningful ways upon the quality of life of Elliot and others, not totally unlike him. One supporter once wrote to us that children like my son enable the rest of us to see with humility, to expand our personal global perspectives, and to share the gift of leading by exemplary service to others, not ourselves. For me personally and professionally, my son is an eternal child with all his purity and innocence, and he represents the gift that keeps on giving. He brings inspiration, purpose, and meaning to my life, and I have devoted all my energy and resources, my total being, to his overall well-being, safety, security, happiness, and healthfulness. And so have the millions of other Canadians' dads just like me. Nothing comes easy to my son or to most of the Ellies in Canada, and almost everything came relatively easily to me. And I cannot simply reverse that reality. So I must try to do every day of my life, with every breath I take, everything I possibly can to help make Elliot's life as easy and enjoyable as possible. So do all the other dads living with autism in their lives at home. And the first thing most of us did was to get that label, that diagnosis, and to find out what it meant. Then we attempt to do whatever is best for our Ellies for the rest of their natural lives. Divorce can be like a death sentence to these efforts by fathers, to handcuff and stifle our natural parental instinct to protect, nurture, and guide, plus for life, our often very vulnerable, in unique and individual ways, offspring, our beloved kids. To deny that caring is tantamount to kidnapping, the illegal grooming of children with challenges, the most vulnerable sector of society, and the murderous destruction and death of our autistic children's families of origin. Good dads don't do that. Misguided women, antiquated family service organizations and structures, and draconian government at all levels commit these social cultural crimes against persons at the greatest risk in our society today. A country does that. A country that has not evolved into a nation whose gold standard is defined and measured by how well it provides for its most innocent members, not its wealthiest and most privileged. Advocates for any good cause don't choose to air the dirty laundry because they like the grief attached, the hate mongering, and the ignorance. No, they are like me or other people you have never heard of, or they're like the Terry Foxes of this world who everybody knows or should know and respect. These people are compelled to do what they do. They're compelled to. Something deep down inside them, to their very core, motivates them to action, to speak out against oppression, and to try to right the wrongs. Terry Fox is still a hero to millions of us. This young man desperately wanted to make a positive, helping difference in people's lives. He used his mind, his spirit, body, and life itself to do that. He made his young life matter by doing something that would benefit others. He inspires us all still today. Terry and Rick Hansen and all the children, women, and men who put themselves out there for something they know to be true and just and honorable, they all realized a need or shortcoming in society, and they gave their all to correct the situation. Their causes are beyond partisan politics, and their efforts should not be prostituted, marketed, or polluted by the dubious agendas of governments, NGOs, media, and the corporate world, Coach. 9 pages of crumpled bits of paper with imperfect thoughts, as Mike and the Mechanics put it later, and I'm still at the beginning. I am so invested in, and unfortunately enmeshed even, in my son's, our cause, that it is hard to write about it anymore. To speak extemporaneously about it, with the body of working knowledge parents like me acquire about our children's conditions, I could gladly and would rabbit on forever to an empathetic ear about it. I put over 30 years of research, study, and anguish experiential learning into Vicariously Autistic, a book I recently completed, a personal manifesto. It is, as Mr. Webster states, a public declaration of intention, motives, and views about Elliot and I and our personal journey living with autism. The title takes a lot of literary license with the legalistic term vicariously liability/responsibility. For literary purposes, this translates to the notion that because of the day-to-day, lifelong commitment that parents like myself make to our daughters and sons with autism, we end up living our lives as if we were autistic too. And we get treated that way, for better or for worse. You tell me. We sometimes even more painfully share that reality because we have made ourselves aware and know too well of the Grand Canyon that exists between what is best for our loved ones with ASD and what is really and actually accessible and available for them and us today in Canada. The popularized myth of inclusion without the proper resourcing is in reality exclusion. And for far too many Canadian families living with autism, the latter translates into seclusion, with little or no really meaningful social interaction of any kind forthcoming. And just imagine having a condition defined on the one hand, as I said before, by a lack of social reciprocity, and the best your country can offer that citizen at risk of harm is to subject them to even more isolation. So many advocates and campaigners, parents and unpaid caregivers, the really only form of caregiving, have told me over the years, whether they are on a bike or a hike or walking for this condition or peacefully proclaiming for that one, they all say the same thing. Nobody cares anymore. People don't know who to believe or trust. They usually mention the first time that people previously personally close to them started shunning them and turning their back to them as soon as their son or daughter was diagnosed. No more social calls, less visits. They/we became pariahs, as if our children's conditions were going to rub off on their precious children. My son and I have never been invited to a barbecue or social function of any kind since his diagnosis, and the time I began advocating for his well-being. Like I said before, everything in life came relatively easily to me, but nothing comes easy to my son in his life. So parents like me are implored to do all we can to provide our children with what they need to thrive. And what is it they need the most? The love and nurturing support and guidance of caring moms and dads. That's where it starts for the lucky ones. So I'll take a stab at this one more time, compacting what my son, Ellie, my man-child with autism, and I have come to mean to one another over the past 33 years. Only the men and their children who I'm trying so desperately to represent with the dignity and respect they so deserve, only they truly know how challenging every step along this path is to take. I am emotionally drained and physically exhausted from the process. Sometimes I felt that it was going to kill me. But then I remember the dads it has killed. Not the day-to-day realities of raising children with ASD, but the impossible to accept realities of having your children, regardless of their health issues, taken from you. 25 years ago, a female employee with Early Identification Intervention Services Nova Scotia told me that men are not involved in the world of autism. Really? Maybe that's because they are blocked, denied, and not provided the opportunities to participate and contribute to the lives of people with autism. That's certainly been my experience. There are some pictures and texts included in this advocacy plea. One of them is of my cubicle desk at the College of the North Atlantic, where I was the psych instructor and wore many other hats. In the background of that pic is a Globe and Mail article about a father in BC who took his own life after his 3 little girls, if I remember correctly, were taken from his life. His story inspires me today. And in the book, I tried to make sure that his life was regarded positively. This case may not have evolved into autism at all, but it did involve another father thrown out, cast away, and discarded from his family of choice. That was his life. And when he lost his family, he lost his life. I would not harm myself or anyone else, but that does not make me a man that could necessarily measure up to the father in that article, or to any of the other dads who are not with their children or us any longer. If you think they were weak or lesser human beings, or if you think they were weak or lesser human beings because of the way their lives ended, then you are the lesser human being. I've been involved in the broader area of mental health for almost 50 years, 5 decades. From my start as a young student working in the trenches, as a paraprofessional in group homes, as overnight relief, as a psychiatric nursing orderly at the old NS hospital, as a youth mentor, plus, and later as a professional children's mental health worker at the IWK Children's Hospital, as a case manager for Metro Community Housing, and teaching psychology and operating my own private counseling practice in Canada and Australia, plus. The psychology to help people. It's as simple as that. I said that once in front of a Canadian Psych Association former editor, I believe, in our honors class at St. Mary's University. I was laughed at and encouraged to never say that again. I worked at the Salvation Army Men's Shelter on Goddison Street in Halifax, as a dead help counselor for Anglicare in Tasmania, and as a clinical supervisor for Catholic Social Services in Alberta, not that long ago. And over the years, I saw far too many primary mental health care consumers, in other words, the people with mental health conditions, return from social work visits and psych visits and appointments much worse off than they were before they even went. That was a pattern that I noticed very early on and very often. So I wanted to interrupt that a little bit to improve that process and to have an impact, a meaningful impact upon some of these individuals re-victimized by mental health non-servicing. I wanted to help, and I did, but I had to incur the chastisement and workplace harassment of coworkers who did not share my professional integrity or ability, honestly, in too many of these cases. Codes of ethics and professional oaths, not totally unlike marriage vows, meant more to me than union status or a paycheck. And I paid the price for defending my name and integrity. My family and I and our friends and loved ones suffered and experienced the wrath, double standards, and misguided practices of incompetent, resource-draining administrators and green disease turfers who did not intend to and would not help anyone but themselves in their shamefully well-paying mental health and or public self-serving sector political positions. You got to pay for integrity, and the costs often include losing your job and being labeled a pariah again. But it's good company to keep, though, because some of the greatest people of all time were outcast by lesser thans, usually posers and wannabes, full of jealousy and envy, who cannot accept the notion that most people and their families are not like them and theirs, and they do not want to be, for lots of very good reasons that, given their limitations, they will never be able to truly understand. Like the NS Early Identification Intervention Services lady said to me, there's no role in autism. Using similar poisonous personal put-downs towards boys, young men, and male elders in Canada, one might assume then that there is no role for dads and their sons in families in Canada either, even in families. It's disheartening. It is disheartening, the lethal false narratives which are generated, the destructive smokescreen tactics applied to deflect attention away from serious issues affecting millions more Canadians every day. No individual in a free society, maybe no subject in this quasi-apartheid monarchic colony should be neglected. The few should not be neglected for the many, and the many should not be neglected for the few. I applied for 472 jobs in the early 2000s, mostly in the Maritimes, all in the broader mental health field, and all positions I was very well qualified for. I was token interviewed a few times to meet HR quotas, but nothing came of my search. To my knowledge, all these vacancies were filled by women, mostly with nurses and related unionized healthcare quotation marks professionals. They all had that one single item of the selection criteria that I, being a male, could never be able to present with. So I gave up hope in competing for meaningful, contributory employment in my field of training and expertise and experience, despite the pressing need for an equal and alternative voice and perspective within these female-dominated and domineering roles. So being born without a vagina, I continued trying to find a decent job that could provide a good enough income for me to crawl out of the poverty I was forced into primarily because of my gender. I'm not being bitter or resentful if I sound that way. I'm just trying to tell the truth and be accurate with what I say. Like most single-parent dads I meet, I brought everything monetary, material, plus to my marriage. But I got caught off guard and was left holding a big empty bag of nothing. The dumper has a power play, always has a plan, and controls the buttons to push. But the one dumped is unprepared and can only react short-handedly. To reiterate, dads like me who wake up one morning and at the whim of a woman go from prince of a man, loving dad to a piece of crap, well, we usually lose it all. That is to say, have all of our stuff stolen from us. But all that is on our minds and all that we care about at all is our kids. Being forced into poverty is a major life event that exacerbates the stress single-parent dads endure while coping with the trauma of divorce. But we have more important things on our minds and in our hearts than simply getting a job to pay our royal dues, plus alimony and maintenance and legal fees. I used to run a lot of stats when I was involved with research and discovered that every aspect of the process, from getting raw data to analysis and dissemination of results, is somewhat fallible. What spin for whose purpose? Fact from fiction. Who pays you? It's been indicated to me in the past that since the term was popularized in the 60s, 85% of cases of autism reported were male persons. It appears that 90% of the nurses, teachers, and social workers who process our children, K-12 like stock processes meat, are FEE male, female, and the remaining 10% are WOE, woman. Let's pretend, as we would with a CBC or CTV news item, that all of the above is in some way not entirely untrue. Can you imagine if there was a burgeoning health condition of any kind in Canada today, and almost all the individuals who were affected were little girls, and almost everyone who would work with them on their condition was a man? I can hear the screams of protest all the way from the Ottawa Valley to the Bay of Islands. Double standards seem to be our golden standard of best practice. They say that 50% of .ca marriages new and subsequent end in divorce. But for families living with autism, that rate is 87%. If even remotely accurate, why is that so? I resent the demeaning term, the X. So I'll just say my son's mother, as I repeat her initial warning shot and intent to coerce in the early hours of divorce. No court in Canada will ever take a child from his mother. Every single dad in .ca is intimidated and bullied by this claim or reality. We good men dads see our daughters and sons' families of origin exterminated and obliterated without justice or mercy, and our hands are tied behind our backs as we face this firing squad, which is the UFC, CFL, and the systems of family injustice in Canada today. I'm referring to the unified family courts and the collaborative family law, not the Ultimate Fighting Club and the Canadian Football League. Although there is probably more honor and equity, fairness, understanding, and encouragement to be found in the latter. I am intent on not defending my son and I, or speaking for any of the autistic families I am permitted to represent, by attacking the women who are vigorously attacking us. This assault on the rights of children and their fathers is supported system-wide by female-biased family courts and a cross-country bureaucratic infrastructure that defames and denigrates Canadian dads of divorce and their families. I have been traveling around this world since I was 2 years old, and I know of no place on earth except Canada that treats us dads and our children with autism or not with such prejudicial gender bias and insidious passive aggression directed towards men. Visible or indiscriminate groups in society that are targeted by bias, bigotry, or hatred are vulnerable. Their health, welfare, and safety are at risk. Again, that is why we have not attained nationhood yet. We do not live up to our own billing as the best what, based upon how well we take care of our most vulnerable members. Not valuable, which is what we do now. And for my money, based upon how well we don't do a lot of things in this country. Things that we boast about and seem to think we do well or better than any other people in any other country on the face of the earth. I am 71 years of age. I am an elder in this world. Like my Aboriginal friend in Oz used to say, each birthday, I like to think about how young I feel rather than how old I am. Every day I'm negatively impacted by gendered hatred towards white men. Ageism sees me disrespected as an elderly male every day in .ca. My Elliot lives with significant physical and mental health concerns. He is manipulated and influenced to serve groups of other people's needs, interests, and agendas, not necessarily his own. Canadian children of divorce are routinely ordered by blank majesty's neo-colonial courts, rounded up by the authorities. Authorities on what? Certainly not the healthy growth and development of human beings, and removed and isolated from their dads and their dads from them without their clear understanding, consent, and approval. And in a manner eerily similar to the way innocent children of the First Nations were seized not so very long ago, and still today maybe, from their fathers and mothers, relatives, friends, and communities against their will, approval, and or understanding of the consequences. All these innocent boys and girls and their loved ones are and were traumatized by such separation and segregation from all they knew, valued, and loved. All such victims are detached and disconnected from the people and places, customs and practices that define them from birth. Such social genocide is unnatural, unethical, immoral, and against all the laws of nature, God's if you so believe, and in brackets, man. Apparently, though, such savagery and uncivilized action and behavior is not beyond the jurisdiction of our Canadian Commonwealth system of maleficence, if not malfeasance, which continues to diabolically damage and destroy true blue upright fathers and their blameless daughters and sons of divorce in the dominion of Canada to this very day. My son will be 34 years of age on Canada Day, 2025, not 1425 or 1725. For the most of the first decade of his life, we were practically inseparable. Because of my formal training experience, I continue to know more about his condition than anybody else on this planet. In the same way that the vast majority of parents with autistic children become experts on their kids' circumstances because of their dedicated research and practical efforts to do everything they possibly can to enrich the outcomes and overall well-being, the quality of life of their offspring, who they love more than life itself. Most of Mael's teenage years, he shared time-wise as equity as possible with his mom and dad, and that worked as well as possible for the time and place for all concerned. There was open communication at least. It was palatable mainly because I utilized the Tao of negotiation principles and deferred to the will of his mother and the socio-educational systems of nothingness simply in order to keep the peace with them all. I was able to design and deliver Cadillac programming for Elliot and to implement individualized plans and measures targeting his strengths and interests through our ET teams of students and friends that I put in place during his times with me. Unfortunately, I could only impact 50% of his time because the other 50% of his time he was not with me, and I could have no impact upon what he did. Such yo-yoing undermines the maintenance and generalization of intervention goals and programs, but you have to pick your battles to have any chance of survival, let alone success. And remember, this is my son's life on the line. Now, in the past 10 years or so, the time that this inseparable duo, Ella and I, were actually even in the same room together, has nosedived to 0 seconds in the past 4 years. When you look at the attached photos of the two of us together, if you cannot feel the love between us, then you probably could use an IQ checkup yourself. An EQ checkup, I mean. When you feel that devotion and dedication, when you live the strength and power of that kind of love, then you may be able to appreciate how devastating our physical separation is for my son and I. This total reversal of time together over a 10-year span correlates directly and inversely with the presentation of variety of traumatic stress disorder thoughts, feelings, and behaviors experienced by myself for the only time in my life. And I hope it's for the last time, and that my son, I hope, never experiences those similar kinds of symptoms, but such is not the case. And I hope it is for the last time, as I said. I would not wish what has been done to my child and I on anyone, even on families of origin and choice who do this still to us. No one where my son lives in TONCA has spoken to me in 5 years. I have not been consulted or informed about any aspects of Elle's life during that time. All parental contact, communication, verbal or otherwise, ceased abruptly without any explanation or justification shortly after my mother's passing and my son's grandma. I have very serious issues and concerns about my son and no way to address them without going to where he lives and knocking on the door and risking, as so many dads I have listened to have, an Amber Alert being sounded and me, the demonized dad of the day, being arrested and earning a criminal record. I don't want to risk such a miscarriage of justice which could lead to my son's greatest source of support being labeled a criminal. What crime committed, and by whom, I ask? Finally, this manuscript is a plea for assistance in reuniting my Elian and his dad. I am one of the two most important people in his life. He needs both of us. There is no legitimate reason that my son and I should ever be separated. I have never and never would separate him from his mom. He has every right to share and enjoy his time, his life, and he has every right to share and enjoy his time, his life, as he has with his mother and his father, fairly and equitably and decently. I am the constant, the foundation for security, stability, and comfort in his life, as he is in mine. We are lifelines for one another, just as all loving parents and loyal sons and daughters are for one another. Elle and I require legal guidance, a lot of information, and support of various kinds, I presume, in order to navigate our way through this process of asserting our rights. If we, he, or I have any rights in this country related to this matter. If we don't, This country is even less a nation than it boasts about being. My Ellie and I so desperately want to be united. And if you will, in any constructive, meaningful manner, help us realize our shared goal, then your assistance will be sincerely appreciated by both of us together. That's all I can really say. I am very overwhelmed by all of this endeavor right now, but believe me when I say, very earnestly, thank you. And one final word, which is very important to us. This plea is a tribute to the professional trucker and his daughter, whom I met aboard the ferry on my second bike ride for autism. Thank you both for what you do for one another. You are very important people in this world. You matter very much in life, and you will always be remembered by our family and others. I admire you, sir, and applaud you and your daughter both. Thanks again for talking with me. It is a privilege to have met you. Vala Zeves. Thanks for everything.